Hello there and welcome to this Advective weather video on the ongoing weather across the United States. We have two significant current weather systems and then one to look forward to in the near future. We'll go through all of them in due course. First off, we have winter weather. A major nor'easter has been affecting quite a large part of the northeast United States with some extreme impacts being seen. There have been widespread power outages and huge snowfall accumulations of well over a foot, locally approaching 2 feet, particularly in upland areas. Greatest impacts will continue through to this evening, so a few more hours yet for the worst hit locations. Strong wind gusts will continue to cause power outages, as well as snow bringing down power lines, and potential for coastal flooding remains. In the western US, we have another atmospheric river. Unfortunately, these aren't going to slow down anytime soon, and scientists are becoming increasingly concerned that we could see major historic flooding levels in California over the next couple of months, particularly into April, as the record-breaking snowpack melts rapidly with all these warm atmospheric rivers that seem likely to continue at least for the next couple of weeks. In the short term, however, heavy precipitation through to tomorrow will cause potentially catastrophic flooding impacts below 5,000 foot. This is both from heavy rain and snowmelt below around 5,000 foot. This is going to obviously channel into the narrow mountain valleys and raise those river levels very fast to a very deep level. With the previous flooding, which I will go into later in this video, the flooding that is, but the previous time we had a high risk just a few days ago. There was floods well up to the second story of buildings. Mandatory evacuations were issued to save people's lives. I'm not aware of any fatalities from that flooding event, but well over 40% of deaths do occur in high-risk days, and today is another high-risk day for flooding. We'll go into that later on, however. And there will continue to be snow above 7,500 foot, which will lead to potential for further damage on buildings. There have already been some collapses. Hopefully there are no more collapses. People are working very hard to clear their homes. But when you've got several foot of snow, not just on top of your house, but blocking you in on the first story, it can be a bit difficult to get your home to a safe position. Looking at the weather model, this is the low resolution NAM, you can see that in the next 12 hours or so, the snow will move away from California, and the nor'easter will weaken substantially and move off into Canada during the next day or so. And then that snow will move across the northern plains with severe weather in the southern plains. That's on Thursday. Looking at the current warnings, you can still see widespread windstorm warnings in force across the northeast United States, widespread freeze warnings for much of the deep south and southeast, and some windstorm warnings and winter weather advisories across the mountain west, including the Sierra of California. Also of note is those widespread flood watches and flood warnings in California. Also, high wind warnings. There have been quite a lot of trees downed by the strong winds in California today. Please take care of any old or large trees or dead trees that could easily come over in strong winds. And looking at those warning levels, dangerous winter weather expected within the next 12 to 36 hours. It is ongoing. It will continue for 12 to 24 hours in California and the northeast United States. Considerable travel problems are ongoing in those locations and will continue for the foreseeable future. Please stay in your safe place, and of course, with those power outages, you need to have a way to stay warm. But when you're keeping warm with candles or space heaters or another heat source, be careful to avoid fire risk. Don't let pets or children knock these devices over. And of course, if you're using a generator to keep your own power, make sure those fumes don't come inside your house. Once you're safe and warm, check on neighbours and friends in the nearby area and help them out if you can before alerting authorities. Now, onto that flooding today. A 4 out of 4 high risk for excessive rainfall, the second one in a week for California. Thankfully, it drops down substantially to only a marginal risk tomorrow. And then Thursday, we have a slight risk in the ArkLaTex region associated with that severe weather. But for today, intense rain and snowmelt will continue to raise river levels in the Californian mountains. Flooding is already severe in some places, will become very severe, potentially catastrophic, as you saw in that earlier key messages. In the high-risk regions, life-threatening flooding is likely. Pay attention to local law enforcement. They will issue life-saving evacuation orders where flooding is ongoing or is about to happen. If you follow those in quick time, you could have your life saved. Official forecast with those warnings. Flooding, once again, you can see that those flood watches across much of California. Anywhere in a flood watch, you could see substantial flooding. Please be aware, particularly in those regions. And of course, once a flood watch is issued, you should have a way to be notified. When a flood warning is issued, flooding is about to happen, and with the high risk today, that could be a very big flash flood, well above ground level. With the last high risk, it was onto second story of buildings, as I said. That could well happen again today. If you're in a flood warning, treat it as if it is a life-threatening situation and get to high ground immediately. And of course, never go into or through flooded waters. It only takes half a foot to knock you off your feet, and a foot can float an SUV. And this will be particularly fast-flowing because most of the flash flooding is happening in mountainous areas with fast river speeds, so it will be particularly dangerous. Please stay safe and stay informed. When the road is flooded ahead of you, turn around, don't drown. It could indeed save your life. Now onto that severe weather for Thursday. Slight 2 out of 5 risk in place at this time. Maybe upgraded tomorrow or on Thursday itself, because supercells are expected and they could be ongoing for several hours. We'll have to wait and see what the model says as we get closer. All hazards will be present. That's a few tornadoes, large hail and damaging winds. After the supercells, a QLCS is expected, which will produce further damaging wind with brief tornadoes possible into the overnight hours. There you can see that region. You can see the weather setup that's causing it. Large region of sleet, rain, snow, with small patches of heavy snow possible, particularly across Minnesota and Wisconsin, with that low pressure system moving to the north. A secondary low to the south with a dry line initiating that severe weather across Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Flash flooding risk primarily across Louisiana, stretching into neighboring states with these storms. Here's a zoomed in view. You can see all those cities where the level 2 out of 5 slight risk is in place, from San Antonio all the way up to Fort Smith and out east to central Louisiana. There may be an expansion into Oklahoma. It's uncertain how far the moisture will get, but if confidence increases in storms being up there, that's where the best shear will be and where the strongest storms could happen if there's enough energy for them. But at the moment, confidence is not high enough and there is no hatched area, meaning that significant severe weather is currently not forecast, but that could indeed change if models increase confidence. Please stay tuned to those National Weather Service updates. Looking at the NAM 3-kilometer model, which is the best resolution model we have for Thursday, the HRRR will come into range tomorrow. You can see that during the late morning into the early afternoon hours, storms start firing across East Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and those are likely to be supercells in a couple of places. They may not be particularly widespread. It's a bit hard to say. We are still a few days out and models are likely to change as we lead up into this event. You can see that once we get to around 6 p.m, 5 p.m, 6 p.m, the storms start firing along the dry line in central Oklahoma and Texas, and that's likely to produce some strong damaging winds, potentially severe, and possibility, of course, for significant hail and a couple of tornadoes with that. And that will, of course, continue past sunset as the line moves eastwards into Arkansas and Louisiana. And we're a few days out, so make sure you get those pre-storm preparations in place. There's been a lot of storms for this region over the past several months, so hopefully people are prepared. The very strong line of storms that went through Dallas with 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts, or wind gusts approaching that speed, certainly. has likely knocked a lot of the trees down, so there's not a lot of preparation need to be done. But of course, get it prepared to have any loose objects in. You don't want to be having any outdoor events planned on this day during the afternoon. They could well be disrupted. And that's all for today. We hope you're staying safe wherever you are, particularly with the nor'easter and Californian flooding. But wherever you are in the world, we hope you've had a relatively pleasant day and that you're staying safe. Thank you very much. Goodbye.